Hey guys, I'm a water molecule, which means that I have two hydrogens and one oxygen, which happens to be my face. Here's the thing, for AP Biology or College Biology, in this video, we're going to be reviewing everything that you need to know for section 1.1, which is structure of water and hydrogen bonding. Now, please note the disclaimer listed above, and as a little side note for AP Biology or College Biology, they did some updates related to section 1 for the new upcoming AP Biology exam. But don't worry, we have everything that you need to know in this video today. If you're wondering about the unique properties of water, you're in the right spot. Here's the thing, for water itself, the idea that you need to understand is that water has a unique set of properties that allow water to be successful not only with itself, but with its surroundings and other water molecules. So one of the key properties that is there is called polarity. And what polarity really is the way the hydrogen and oxygen work together. So we understand that water basically is deemed H2O. So it has two hydrogens for every one oxygen. And this is unique for water because of the way the hydrogen interacts with water. If you notice in the picture listed here and over here, you could see that the center has this oxygen here, or this red big circle there, and these two small white balls here are designated as hydrogen. And with the hydrogen and the oxygen, what we note is hydrogen has a tendency to chase down oxygen because it's electronegative. So basically it gravitates near the oxygen. By it, I mean the hydrogen gravitates towards the oxygen. And what happens is it creates a sense of what we call a dipole. And the dipole basically allows both of these hydrogens to run towards the oxygen or want to gravitate towards the oxygen, which creates this very unique bend shape along with what we call the lone pairs that are attached to oxygen. But for the purposes of polarity, you just need to understand that water is considered polar covalent, and there's interaction between those hydrogen and oxygens that create this dipole. And this allows hydrogen itself to be strong in its own molecule to interact between the hydrogen and oxygen, and also allows it to interact with other water molecules as well. Let's talk about high specific heat capacity. It might seem a little sus that when you put your feet into the water at the beach, that it's a tad bit cooler than if you put your feet into the sand. And that's because of high specific heat capacity. Here's the thing. With water, it requires a significant amount of energy to raise that temperature. And that means that water is going to require a lot more temperature changes to itself change its own temperature. That's why when you put your feet in the sand, you feel like it's burning, but put your feet nearby in water, it's a lot cooler. The bonds between hydrogen and oxygen help sustain that high specific heat capacity and allows for temperature regulation. So make sure the next time that you put your feet into the water, you can understand that high specific heat capacity is the reason why the sand nearby is a lot warmer than the water in the ground. Think about heat of vaporization, which is the third property of water known for living systems to be very important. Think about when you go outside on a really hot summer day. You start sweating, and this is a key indicator of how water helps us as human beings. If we didn't sweat, we would actually start to dry up in the sun. Here's the thing. It's no cap that sweating is using a high heat of vaporization of water to help cool your body. So when the sweat starts evaporating, it starts to absorb a significant amount of heat from the skin, therefore lowering your skin's temperature and thus allowing your body to decrease its overall temperature.
Ever wonder why water is so essential to life? It's all about chemistry. Water's polarity lets it form hydrogen bonds, making it perfect for building and bonding molecules. Its high specific heat that keeps body temperature stable, and when you sweat, water's high heat of vaporization pulls heat away, cooling you down. Water isn't just a drink, it's a biochemical superpower.
I want to preface this by saying that water in general is a topic that integrates both biology and starts to integrate it into chemistry because you, as an AP biology student, are expected to see how both work together as a foundation to what we call biochemistry. So let's try to integrate your knowledge of what you know so far so you can integrate the biology that you've learned into the chemistry to tie it in all together. Just as a disclaimer for the AP Biology exam, you're not expected to know the chemistry, but it helps you really get and understand the knowledge that you might need for something like a free response question that expects that you critically think outside the box. Okay, let's recap what electronegativity is because it will help you better understand concepts that we're going to show here. So this is a picture of a periodic table, and it's safe to note that electronegativity, or how negative an element is based on the fact that it grows more electronegative going up and to the right of the periodic table, as demonstrated by this arrow, which basically means that oxygen, which is an element on the right side of the table, is negative, and hydrogen, which is on the left side of the table, is positive. This also means that when we took a look at the molecule of water, we have this pull towards this negative, which essentially creates this dipole moment between the relationship of the hydrogen and oxygen. This means water is a polar molecule, and that also means that we have positive charges that are partial on the hydrogen atoms and a partial negative charge on the oxygens. Now let's tie this all together before we embark on the other properties of water, which depends on the HO bond. As previously indicated, we understood that the positive charges of hydrogen tend to lean towards the negative charges of that oxygen, which essentially creates this bend or 104.5-degree angle between the two hydrogens. This allows it to overall, as a molecule, create this dipole moment due to the changes between the positive charge and the negative charge. When we talk about hydrogen bonding itself, this also leads us to understand that the attractions between hydrogen and oxygen are very weak. And because of this weakness, essentially, between the hydrogen and oxygen, we have unique properties that come about, which include cohesion, adhesion, and high surface tension, which we're going to dive into in just a second.
For AP biology or college biology, you will be expected to know the differences between cohesion and adhesion. One of the things that you need to understand is that cohesion is the ability for water molecules to be attracted to one another, as represented by this tiny blue line that holds these two water molecules together. With cohesion, this allows water to be able to stick together and allows for water droplets to form, or large bodies of water like the ocean behind us that are able to stick together essentially. You wouldn't see a ocean or a large body of water break apart as easily, and that's due to cohesion. Now let's talk about adhesion. Adhesion is a unique property that allows water to attach to various surfaces and allows it to really hold together. For example, water can adhere to a plant as shown in the background here. And it also allows plants to complete what's called capillary action. This is what allows water to be pulled from the stem of the plant all the way up to the leaves because the water molecules are able to hold onto the surrounding surfaces within a plant. Surface tension is the outcome of cohesion when it comes to water molecules. An example of this would be water striders. As you can see here in this video, they tend to glide in the water surface without actually sinking to the bottom. And that's due to the surface tension that is able to hold the bug up.
Did you know water and oil don't mix because of hydrogen bonding? Water is hydrophilic. It loves bonding with other water molecules. Oil, on the other hand, is hydrophobic. It avoids water completely. Even though hydrogen bonds are weaker than covalent ones, they're key to water's unique behavior. These bonds form when hydrogen connects with fluorine, oxygen, or nitrogen, just like in water.
Let's talk about high heat capacity. It's the ability of a substance to be resistant to change in temperature. I want you to think about that body of water where you had a person walking nearby in the sand, puts their feet into the sand, and then puts their feet into the ocean. If you ever notice that the ocean is a lot cooler, and that's because ocean waters tend to have a high heat capacity, and that allows it to maintain stable ocean temperatures. This is really important for biology because you want to think about yourself when you're standing outside. If it's a really cold day, you want to remember that you don't freeze up really quickly. It takes a long time for you to do so. And that's because even though we're composed of water, the high heat capacity allows a lot of organisms like humans to maintain a consistent body temperature. Yes, you're going to think about terms like homeostasis, which are related to things like sweating or having the shivers when your temperature changes. But overall, we understand that the reason why we don't freeze up or we don't sweat too quickly is because of our composition of water. Heat is absorbed when hydrogen bonds break and released when hydrogen bonds form, and that's important to note. In relation to high heat capacity, we're going to focus on high heat of vaporization. I want you to think of a puddle of water. And when you're immediately after a rainstorm, the thing is, you notice that when it starts to go from liquid to gas, we talk about something called evaporative cooling. So the thing is, that is as liquid evaporates, the remaining surface is going to cool down. And the process is explained through how sweat works as well. So you could say, for example, if you have a puddle of water and it's a rainstorm and you step near that puddle of water, you'll notice that you feel a lot cooler in your surroundings. And that's because the surface of that area is a lot cooler. In the same way, you can utilize this to think about sweating. When we sweat, we're utilizing high heat of vaporization to cool off our skin when we are sweating on a hot day. Now let's talk about hydrogen bonding again. So I want you to think about the relationship between two items. I want you to think about the relationship between oil and water. What happens is oil displays what we call hydrophobic characteristics. And if you look at the word hydrophobic, you could sort of see the term hydrophobic and see the word phobia. Phobia means fear. And so what happens is oil is fearful of water, which is why when you dump oil and water together, it tends to separate. And it shows what we call an aversion or a hatred towards water. Water displays hydrophilic properties, which means that it likes other water molecules. And just to note, this is not really important right now, but you will cover what's called the phospholipid bilayer when you cover the unit related to the cell. And you'll see what we're talking about when we're talking about hydrophilic and hydrophobic properties. For now, you just need to know these hydrogen bonds are weaker than covalent bonds, and they play a really crucial role in the water properties. Just as a brief reminder, hydrogen bonding occurs when hydrogen bonds to three specific elements: fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen. or I like to say fun to help me remember fawn or fun. But specifically for water, we talk about the relationship between hydrogen and oxygen as being very important to understand. Now, this item right here is talking about pH. And while the updated version of the AP biology material doesn't require you to understand pH, you will need to know some things about water. First of all, water maintains a neutral number, we say around 7. And you can remember between 0 to 14, less than 7 would be something that's acidic, and something greater than 7 would be basic. You don't really need to understand this formula specifically, but it's just helpful to understand that when we're talking about water, we're talking about that neutrality that exists and the relationship between the acidity and basic behavior. Just as a disclaimer, this is just more extra information. You're not required to know it for the AP biology exam, but it's just helpful to understand the neutrality of water itself. Now let's go to water as a solvent, which is important to understand. If you remember water in chemistry, we talk about a solute, a solvent, and how they mix together to make what we call a solution. So solute is something like salt. And let's say that you pour it into something like water. It becomes then a solution, which is a homogeneous mixture of two substances. In this case, we have equal parts water and equal parts salt. The solvent is the component that does the dissolving itself. So that's why we have the spoon that helps out to dissolve. The solute is the component that's being dissolved. So in this case, the salt or the sugar. An aqueous solution is utilizing water specifically as the solvent. So in this case, this solution is considered aqueous. And water's polarity and its relationship between oxygen and hydrogen are important because it allows water to be versatile and able to dissolve multiple products. Now let's talk about this relationship between what we call expansion on freezing. So we know that when we're talking about water, if you were to look at water in a 3D format, it formulates what is called a lattice structure, specifically with ice, and it causes the water to expand when it's freezing. And this is what allows ice to float on top of cold bodies of water like lakes in the winter time. And that's why sometimes you'll see people make holes in these ice glacier type structures to go fishing underneath. And you'll notice the fish are floating underneath. And that's because of that lattice structure that water has when it freezes. Now let's take an opportunity to complete the following quiz question. Pause the video and once completed, let's review together. Okay, this question asks what property of water is primarily due to hydrogen bonding between water molecules? And the correct answer is A, high specific heat capacity. The thing is, remember with answer choice B, it says nonpolar. Like dissolves like, and in this case, water is a polar substance, and that's why B is incorrect. High density as a solid compared to a liquid. Remember, density, we didn't talk about that right now, so that could be voided. And low heat of vaporization. Remember, we have high specific heat capacity and high heat of vaporization, not low, making A the best answer choice because, as you remember, we have high heat capacity, which allows for the idea of oceans being able to be on a really hot day next to the sand. That means that it takes some time for that water to change states of temperature. So even though it might be 95 degrees outside, you put your feet into that water, it's still going to remain a lot cooler because of that high heat capacity. And that's important for us as human beings and other organisms because that high water population in our body or high water ratio in our body gives way for allowing us to sustain an environment that could be either really hot or really cold. Hey, Geeking Out on STEM family. Guess what? We want you to hit that subscribe button. Why? Because we'll be producing more content just like this for the AP Biology exam and the new digital SAT exam. By subscribing, you'll be getting exclusive, up-to-date tips, tricks, and secrets for both exams. Also, if you're a parent, a teacher, a homeschool instructor, or a student, you might be looking for affordable and exclusive digital products to help improve multiple choice questions, free response questions, or question bank questions related to both the digital SAT or AP Biology exam. We have them here. Make sure to check out our link tree in our bio for curated resources that you won't find anywhere else. These unique resources are designed to help you raise your score. By hitting the subscribe button, the more subscribers we get, by the way, the more videos we can make. So make sure to join our family to ensure that you get a perfect score for both exams.